We've talked about the deep dark secrets of Clovis Bray and his EXO program, coming to Europa to construct a fortress in the ice that would birth the first human consciousness into an EXO body, well, at least the first successful ones. But today we're going to dive into a tale of one of the colonists on this Europan moon, a boy named Micah Abram, whose father was stationed to work on Europa thanks to Clovis Bray's EXO program. This story is incredibly good, and you will see the explanation of the penguins scattered around, see what Cade 1 was like, learn what happened to Micah and their family, and much more. This story begins with a 10-year-old boy writing letters to the Traveler. Each lore entry found in this book is a letter from Micah to the Traveler, and you can get these yourself by obtaining the penguins scattered around Europa. Micah and his father are from Mars, and they were on their way to Europa to join his papa at a brand new colony created by Clovis Bray. So you don't get confused, Micah has two fathers as parents. Micah's papa, who we later assumed to be a character named Hector Abram, is a lead quantum engineer at Braytech, helping Clovis Bray build supercomputers and whatever he needs for his crazy research. Micah's other father, Wesley, is a psychologist, and the reason they're heading to Europa in the first place, to meet up with Hector, and because his psychologist expertise is needed for some reason. When they first arrive on Europa, they are greeted with Braytech snowsuits to keep them warm in the tundra wastelands when they travel between buildings. Most of their time was spent inside though, as most people would be in a place like this with snowstorms. It wasn't really safe to travel outside in the open for long periods of time, but if they needed to, these snowsuits would keep them warm for the time being. So they got the snowsuits as a gift when they first got there, and next to that, Micah also got gifted a penguin plushie upon first arriving. For now, I've got a penguin, a plushie, not a real one. I'm too old for plushies, but Papa told me it's from Clovis Bray, a souvenir for your soon-to-be Arctic adventures. Plus it came with this mini version of an ion shield snowsuit, like the one I have to wear. It actually looks pretty cool, so I think I'm going to keep it. Micah then began to talk about the EXOs. They say, they did it. Clovis Bray and Papa and all the Braytech scientists made real walking, talking, human-shaped AIs. Now, Micah wanted to talk to these EXOs and see what they were all about, but his dad said that he couldn't be trusted not to ask too many questions. This was the reason Wesley was here, father of course, to use his psychology skills on not humans, but the EXOs to analyze their humanness. Most days were the same for Micah. He would wake up, eat breakfast, and walk to the other side of the underground facility for school. But instead of a giant school where, most kids are used to, it was actually just a big room with 2 teachers and about 50 kids for students. It was here that Micah found out that every other kid also got a penguin plushie of their own. So things were as normal as you would expect, going to an icy moon and living mostly underground and going to school and things like that. But Micah would also experience weird dreams, a dream where he was an EXO standing in the center of a frozen lake in the middle of the night. Sometimes this dream would be a little different and would keep persisting over days and weeks in the time that they lived here on Europa. Keep that in mind for later. One day, Micah's class took a field trip outside of their underground building to the surface of Europa with their snowsuits on, of course. Now, during this field trip, Micah split off from the group because he wanted to find his parents and learn more about the EXO facility. Knew I couldn't go in the front door without a badge, so I went around the side to the loading bay where the EXOs were unloading a bunch of crates. They looked like they were almost done, so I hid under the dock to wait for them to leave. Instead, I heard one of them sit down. I'm taking a break. Need to or not, this is when I used to have lunch. I refused to work through lunch. And the other one said, I miss lunch. I miss getting hungry. Then the first one replied with this weird tone. So you would say you're hungry for hunger? Which made them laugh for a long time. When they finally stopped, the second EXO said, what do you tell that shrink, by the way? You tell him about the whisper? That's when I wanted to leave. I didn't like them making fun of Dad, plus the way they talked about food and dreams, it made me feel sick. So sick I guess I made a noise because then I heard, "What was that?" So I ran. I heard shouts behind me, footsteps catching up, a bang and a sizzle right over my head. Then 2 cold claws snatched me up. That's when I looked straight into its glowing eyes. So this was Micah's encounter with an exo. He didn't really like the exos and was actually kind of scared by them at this point, despite still having dreams about becoming one. But after this encounter, Micah returned to the classroom to find penguins that were left behind by the others. He gathered some of them up and brought them back to his room, giving them each their own names, seen here. Micah then experiences this weird dream once more and then wakes up to his fathers arguing. If Clovis wants stable and functioning soldiers, he shouldn't put them through trauma in the first place. Papa said that the point wasn't to avoid trauma, but to prepare for it, that we should be able to protect ourselves without relying on you, traveler, that something more powerful could come along or you could turn on us. Skip the ethics lecture and tell me, if you knew humanity could be wiped out in the next 50 years, wouldn't you try anything and everything to save us, to save our child? It got quiet then for so long that I almost went back to bed when I heard Papa again. This DRE stuff is hard, but I think the humanisms you suggested are the solution. In fact, I'll bet my life on it. Dad said that's what he was worried about. I love you, but forget about being safe in 50 years. Micah needs to be safe here and now. He said some of the colonists were going home with the next supply ship. He hoped Papa would join us. Papa started crying then. I got back into bed and piled all my penguins on my head to block it out. It didn't really work because then I started crying too. So from that point in the lore, things get pretty scary. Dad's been working even more. At first I thought that he'd changed his mind about leaving, but now I haven't seen him for a whole week and my stomach won't stop hurting. What has stopped is the dream. 2 nights ago I finally broke away from EUROPA'S gravity as I floated to you. The whisper followed, "Are you sure you know what you think you know?" I woke up before I got close to you, and last night I didn't dream at all, which must mean I figured out the message, but all I have are these words stuck in my head. Are you sure you know what you think you know? This morning, Papa told me Dad's been sleeping at the factory because he's so busy, but soon he'll get a break, and then we'll spend the whole day together as a family. I'm not sure, but I think he's lying. Tomorrow the supply ship leaves for Mars, and I want to go. So I packed my bag, and once Papa goes to sleep, I'm going to put on my snowsuit and go out to find Dad. I don't care if I run into a whole army of exos. Maybe I'll take Mihailova out of my bag and carry her for extra support. That's probably dumb, but I don't really know what else to do. Goodbye, Micah. So Micah's dad Hector was working more and more. He gets told that he was sleeping at the factory because he was too busy, but Micah hadn't seen him in weeks and was getting kinda scared, right? I'm sure anybody would. But from the other pieces of lore we can gather, it looks like the quantum scientist Hector was most likely converted into an exo. This is why he wasn't coming home. We know Clovis Bray was a bad man, and if people turned against him like Elsie did for example, he would do whatever it takes to complete his goal, including killing innocent people to turn them into exos for his experiments. Micah's other father, who we assume is Wesley thanks to some other lore, also was converted into an exo and is actually one of the ones you can find buried near the Asterian Abyss. And to make things even more sinister, Micah was also converted into an exo. We're not sure if it happened right after he went out to look for his dad in the snowstorm like I just read, but it did at some point thanks to Clovis Bray. So Micah 10 became an exo. Micah 10 was explained as a female in the past when we got the lore entries from I think Forsaken or something like that. But the Micah we know from this story is labeled as male, so most people believe that this is the first known trans character in the Destiny universe. But thanks to those previous lore entries from Forsaken or wherever, and also a new one from Beyond Light, the story after Micah's transformation into an exo is pretty cool. Now it's a pretty big one, and I'm just going to kind of explain the overview of it right here, maybe the rest of it for another video. But she would go out there in the wild at different planets and stuff and gather up ghosts to help them find their guardians. Just think about it, ghosts when they're out there, they don't really protect themselves, so they can get killed easily when searching for their own guardian. So that was Micah 10's goal, protect these groups of ghosts as they found their guardians and brought them back to life. But anyway, Guardians, if you enjoyed this lore entry and would also see some more awesome videos on them like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching. My name's Evade, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.